Let's do this.
Alright, first things first, the map is finally finalized. Nothing is going to change about it now. The main thing that really drove me crazy with it was lighting. Just no matter what I tried, just didn't look right, and I feel like I finally found a solution that looks really good, isn't too terribly complicated, and also doesn't send my frames from 60 to 12 for absolutely no reason. Moving on more aesthetic changes, there's now a tracer effect when you shoot. I think it looks better than it just being a white ball that flies through the air, kind of skippily almost. It just didn't look right, and I feel like the tracer effect looks a lot better, and I'm happy with the way it came out. Also, you may have noticed that free look and jumping aren't a thing anymore. This was a design choice, as it didn't feel right for me to be able to look up and down and jump in a game that didn't require me to do so for any reason whatsoever. And a game that's also supposed to be a retro FPS, it just felt like the better thing to do. And it actually, in my opinion, makes the game feel a lot better. Now on to more serious gameplay changes. There are now multiple weapons. Other than the starting pistol, we now have the SMG and the shotgun. All three weapons have separate values. They use the same base class and the base code to work, but they all behave as their own thing, and they're all balanced in a way that kind of complements the way the gameplay is supposed to go with a round-based shooter. In order to get said weapons, that's where the new points system comes into play. You get points for damaging or killing zombies, and those points can be used to either purchase new weapons or to buy ammo for said weapon. And this works very similarly to the way it worked in COD Zombies. There's a spot on the wall that you get that weapon, and if you want to buy ammo for said weapon, you have to go to the same spot. And the price of ammo is half the price of the original weapon price. And that's about all we got for this update, but we're pretty close to being done. The only thing that's left to add is just a main menu and just make things look a bit more pretty. And then the game is ready for release. First thing I'm going to go over is how I did the tracer effect. Pretty simple, just added the Niagara particle system component under the bullet. So it just spawns in with the bullet, and the bullet is no longer, oh no it is, but it kind of covers itself up. But anyways, it's just a very simple ribbon renderer, fades from yellow to transparent as it dies, gets smaller as it dies, and only has 0.1 seconds to lifetime. That way it's not miles long. It's going pretty fast, just to kind of help sell the illusion, I guess you could say. That's about it. Moving on, we have the weapon system, how that was done. Pretty much we got the weapon base class, which holds all of the information for each weapon. Just the mesh, rate of fire, projectile count, etc., etc. Those same variables are also in the player, because the player actually handles all of the shooting. So first thing we need to do is equip the weapon, which sets the variable in the player called the current weapon, and then attaches all of the variables in the player from the current weapon default stuff, and also sets the mesh to the mesh that we get from the weapon. And then it just plugs everything in here. And when it comes to ammo, you now have a certain amount of ammo before you can't shoot anymore. Very simple stuff. If you don't have ammo, you can't shoot. If you can, it goes through and does everything as normal. And just subtract from ammo. Also, for the shotgun's sake, so that the projectile count actually matters, instead of just doing spawn actor once, it will, every single time, it will generate new spread coordinates or rotations for the bullet so that it's different every time. Spawns the bullet, does it all over again, and actually when it spawns it, now each gun can have specific damage, so it goes into the bullet class that it just spawned and sets the damage accordingly. And that's about it. We didn't have to change much. But here's an example of what a child class of the weapon base looks like. 'Cause that's how making new weapons works, is you just make a class of the weapon base, and then when you equip the weapon, rather from buying it or from the player starting out with the starting pistol, it takes all this information, plugs it in, and then when the player tries to shoot, the game has all that information, so it can go ahead and do it according to the information that is based off of what weapon you currently have. And then the other thing that was added was the ability to buy weapons. Pretty much the player just has a points variable that is changed by everything else in the game. And that goes up by the zombies. Let me pull that up real quick. Pretty much all that's changed about the zombie script is now dude takes damage has a use, just gives the player 5 points, and then when we die, we give the player 50 points. And then all giving the player points does is it casts to the player and then adds however many points we want to add to points. Move on to how the actual wall buys work. It just has a little bit of text and then the mesh, as well as a trigger so that the player, if you're within it, you can actually buy the weapon. Might have to make that bigger, but it's good enough for now. And going over to the code, first thing it does is make sure that it has the right mesh set up, and then there's a specific variable for how much ammo costs, which is just sets that, and it's just the price of the gun divided by 2. Then on event tick, it will actually update the text. That way, if you have the weapon, instead of it saying you can buy the weapon again, it says, hey, buy ammo for half as much. So once again, just casts the player, checks to see if we have the weapon that we're trying to sell. If we do, then it will say, hey, buy ammo for how much the ammo costs. And it will set that to the text. And if we don't have that weapon, it just says, hey, buy this gun for this much. And then it sets the text accordingly. And then so that you know how many points you have, there's a very basic point counter right here. And literally just casts to the player and sets the text field to the ammo. And code-wise, that's all that was changed in this version. All that was adjusted. Besides that was some health values and whatnot for the player. Let me add a comment right here. Just some very basic variables were changed, like how much damage they do, which has been dropped to 20 rather than 25. How fast they change health, how the speed works, yada yada yada. Very, very basic stuff. Not much was changed.